I will try to be very mindful of your time. I know it's a weeknight. I know some folks have to get home and get to work. By midnight, I'll be done. We're going to solve all the world's problems. No doubt by midnight, we're going to be good to go. So I'm going to use a PowerPoint. It just kind of helps me keep focused. Otherwise, I'll start talking about me in diapers again in Akron, Ohio. Nobody needs to hear that. So it just kind of helps me keep tabs on time, keep focused a little bit, makes life a little bit easier for me, and hopefully for you as well. So what we're going to do, hopefully over the next hour and 15, is I'll talk to you a little bit about my journey, how it is that I went from the JCC in Akron to coming back here tonight, and a little bit about the Matthew Shepard Foundation, for those of you that don't know. And then we'll get into kind of a little bit of a dark topic, hate crime. It's not a very joyous topic, but it's one that I have spent a lot of time focused on. I've spent a lot of time in that space of hate crimes. And I want to talk a little bit about that, how it's very relevant to what's going on today. And then kind of wrap up with what we can do to try to come together, recognizing the differences and the uniqueness that we all have and how we can use that to kind of partner together. But I think we'd all agree that we're living in some scary times. So hopefully we can learn a bit from each other. I love doing these presentations, but my favorite part is the Q&A at the end. I want to hear what's on your mind. I want to hear what questions you have. I want this to be more of a discussion. I don't want to give a speech. Quite certain I will put myself to sleep, and my mother in the back, she'll go to sleep as well. So let's try to keep this kind of a lively discussion. We'll kind of keep focused and keep pace. But one of the first things I want to do is talk about that. Now, when I show that, not in Akron, Ohio, I always ask, what is that? Who is that? And I wait. And I get crickets.
Good old Kent State.
Kent State, right. I get crickets, and every once in a while somebody will say, it's that school. It's that school that kids died. Well, yes, that's true. But I show this for one reason. I stared at that sucker for so long when I was 13 years old in the 7th grade at Our Lady of the Elms. And I stared at that because we had to write our first research paper. Okay, I realize there's some people that are my age or a little older here, which is good. Pre-internet, right? 3x5 cards. You had to go to the actual library, use something called microfiche, right? So we had to do a research paper. You could write on anything you wanted, which was glorious. It must have been an anniversary of some sort with Kent State, because I got fixated on that picture. So I wrote about Kent State, and I can still remember sitting at my grandparents' manual typewriter, banging this opus out. And what struck me about that picture and what has stayed with me for so long is I thought, in my 13-year-old brain, that was the worst thing that could happen, is your government turning on you. Your government picking on people who were innocent, who did nothing. The 4 students that were killed, as we all know, were not even part of the protest movement, as if that would even be an excuse for their death. They were just students. They were just kids. And they were slaughtered by government actors. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to somebody. So in my 13-year-old brain, I thought, well, I'm going to fix that, because I thought I could. And I thought, I'm going to get into the government to prevent that from ever happening again. But that kind of went sideways, and I started researching the FBI. And some weird human called J. Edgar Hoover, a little strange man that he was. But I thought that could be an organization where I could do some good. I could get in there. He did do some work in civil rights in the 60s. I think I could expand upon that. I think it could make a difference. I think that could be where I shine. And that's what I did. Okay. Can we use that? I'm going to start singing. You know that. You know that. I am going to start singing. I'm going to start singing. Hold on. I'm going to start singing. Patsy Cline. No? Okay. Later, that's later over the fruit tray. So this became the photo that really set the path and the course for me and really set the stage for what it is that I wanted to do. Anybody know the history of her? Before I move on? Nobody knew that. She's a runaway. She's 14.
Yeah, she wasn't even a student.
Wasn't even a student. Nobody ever knows that. I'm coming back every week and giving the speech here. You answer all my questions. This is amazing.
Her last name started, I think, with a V, and it was like Italian or something.
Marianne Vecchio. Oh, you're good. You're so good.
I remember that.
That's right. So I think you heard a little bit in the introduction about what the foundation does. You're all familiar with Matt Shepard, the story of Matt, before you saw the video. So as it was described, we do #erase hate. It's pretty much what we do on a daily basis. A lot of it's through speaking engagements, not just me, obviously, but Dennis and Judy Shepard travel the world. They have done this thousands of times. Corporations, middle schools, so many different audiences. They've tried to tell that story from a perspective of parents who are grieving, who hope that no other set of parents have to deal with what they had to deal with. Besides that, if you are familiar with the Laramie Project, the play, the movie, we have a lot of multimedia works that we support as well. That's pretty much what we do within the foundation. What I always think is interesting is, as we know, there are thousands of wonderful nonprofits. Even within the LGBT community, there's thousands, right? There's thousands. So what makes us any different than any of the others? For me, it was that. Do you remember that 20 years ago? Seeing these very just inspiring, humble, grieving, real parents on TV over and over and over, talking about their son, speaking from the lawn of the hospital. They were so real. And Matt was the suburban blonde kid, college kid, University of Wyoming. It was such an impactful story 20 years ago, and what's amazing is it has stuck around. It's still so meaningful for so many people. This is my memory of Judy. These pictures were taken just last year at a high school in Indianapolis. And so many of the young kids, and what just blew my mind is it was a Jesuit high school in Indianapolis. What amazed me about these kids, who came out and listened to her presentation, I'm sure they had to, but what amazed me is they left time for Q&A. They set up 2 microphones in the gym. She stopped, she asked her questions, and these kids flooded off the bleachers to ask her questions, and they all started the same way. Hi, my name is Mary. I identify as bisexual. I'm 14. Mrs. Shepard, I'd like to, what? We're in a Jesuit school. Oh God, oh God. All I kept thinking of is, go, that is awesome. These kids were so comfortable in who they were, and they felt so accepted in that school and in that space. That's how they started every single question. I always felt bad for the straight kids because they looked a little embarrassed if they had to say they were straight, but neither here nor there. It was very cute. What made their story so lasting, another thing about Matt Shepard, was very similar to Emmett Till. Remember his story? There are now federal laws named after these 2 young men. The Emmett Till Bill, as I like to call it, it authorized, if you don't know what that is, it authorized the FBI to spend some time with state and local law enforcement to do a deep dive into all of these unsolved civil rights era murders from the 50s and 60s. Named after him. And you saw in the video with President Obama, the Matthew Shepard Law. which for the first time gave the FBI the authority to investigate hate crimes committed against the LGBT community and the disabled community. As an FBI agent, I never had that power before that law was signed. And the Shepherds lobbied for years to get that law passed. And I have to give the Anti-Defamation League and the Jewish community so much credit because they pushed this bill hard. And were it not for the ADL, never would have passed. Never would have passed. But they have these lasting legacies, and they really became folks that other advocates could stand on the shoulders of. You look at Edie Windsor, you look at Jim Obergefell, and there's so many others, right? And it doesn't even get into Dr. King, Cesar Chavez, Susan B. Anthony. There's so many advocates in history that spent decades fighting for positive change, putting themselves out there. Death threats, unpopular causes, fighting for what was right, what they believed in. Incredibly inspiring. Now, those pictures, you're probably not going to know who that is. That's okay. 1991, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. There we go. For those of you who are not nodding your head, Yankel Rosenbaum was a Hasidic Jewish scholar living in New York from Australia. He had the unfortunate circumstance to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was a funeral that was occurring, a Jewish funeral, and there was a procession going through Brooklyn. A lot of limousines, the hearse. The last car in the procession was trying to get through that yellow, red light, ran over two African-American kids, killing one of them. It's August, it's Brooklyn, New York, it's hot, and everybody's outside. Recipe for disaster. Sparked the Crown Heights riots, culminating in a group of African Americans, Lemrick Nelson being one of them, who the news cameras capture as he's saying, "Get the Jews, kill the Jews." I never thought I would hear those words again. And a little mob went out and they found Mr. Rosenbaum, stabbed him 3 times, killed him. Went through a state trial, went through a federal trial. I had the great privilege of serving as the agent on the federal retrial and had a chance to meet with Mr. Rosenbaum's family. That was my first real experience with a national hate crime and how devastating this was. Devastating to the Jewish community, not just in Crown Heights or Australia, but across the world because of what happened to one man. It really gave an understanding for how hate impacts not just the victim or the victim's family, but so many others. So many others. I want to make sure we all understand, I'm throwing out hate crime. I want to make sure we all understand what it is I'm talking about. Hate. I think we all sort of have an understanding of what hate is. And a crime. To commit a hate crime, gotta be a crime. That's key. You would think that's sort of intuitive. Sometimes it's not. I can yell and scream at this nice woman. I think she's nice. I'm going with she's nice. But I can yell and scream at her because of her gender. Or if I perceive her to be Jewish, I can yell and scream a whole bunch of things. Not a crime. Unless I threaten her, it's not a crime. Protected by the First Amendment, right? So we have to talk about what is a crime. Motivated by an anti-bias sentiment. Race, religion, national origin, disability, LGBTQ. Whatever you want to put in there as the bias motivation. Gotta have that, gotta have a crime. Okay? It's kind of what we're talking about as we go forward. when Ron asked me to come talk, he wanted me to discuss some of the uptick in reported hate crimes. This is where it gets wonky. It'll be brief, but you'll understand why this is important. There's numbers involved. It's not the fault of Our Lady of the Elms or St. Vincent St. Mary High School or the Ohio State University that I'm bad at math, but I am. Just hang with me on this, okay? All right. But what's important is you hear about this all the time, right? Hate crimes are on the increase. Reported hate crimes are going up. Anti-Semitism, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant, they're all going up, they're going up. Going up by what number? Is there a base that we're talking about? By a certain percentage? In Akron? Or Brooklyn? Or I don't know. It's really interesting to do a little bit of a deep dive into this. So, the FBI, the last several decades, has been collecting crime data, hate crime data too. Here's what makes this a little icky. Got to put data in to get data out. We all know this. Uh-oh, I see somebody who knows where I'm going with this. So the FBI says, all law enforcement agencies, all 18,000, give me your data. Give me your data. How many rapes, robberies, burglaries, hate crimes, how much do you have? I'm going to put it in this big, super secret FBI computer and spit out a bunch of data. And that's great, but it's voluntary. You don't have to if you don't want to. If the chief of the Akron Police Department says, yeah, no, I'm not feeling it really, I don't think I want to. Doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. So right away, we can talk about some numbers. And you'll see there's an uptick. There's some 7,000, we used to be 6,000, we were 5,000. Okay. Get it? All voluntary numbers. Stay with me on this. So the number's increasing. If you really do a deep dive into the data, anti-racial bias, African American men, year after year after year after year after year. Religion, Jews are attacked more than any other religion in this country. Sexual orientation, gay men. Those are your biggest victim classes. So again, we got 18,000 law enforcement agencies. Here is where we go, I'm really bad at math, but I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. You got 18,000, right? About 16,000 gave something. But 88%, 88% of all law enforcement agencies in our country say, we have no hate here. Really? Come on. So do you not have hate? Or you do, but you don't want to tell anybody? Or you have hate against certain people and you don't, shh. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. I would love to know, but I don't know. Aha. Let's talk about your reporting here for a minute. So, Ohio. Y'all need to do better. You know that, right? Oh, I gotta know you. All right, good. You have, really what you have is a sentencing enhancement statute. Right? You harass somebody, do it because the person's Jewish, you enhance the penalty. Maybe. Or not. You don't have a standalone hate crime law. You don't have a standalone hate crime law that says if you do this, we are going to punish you for that crime, for that hate crime. You don't have that. I'm not happy with you. Okay, now, what I am happy about is that the Akron Police Department does report their data. Our population's decreased a little bit. So, in Akron, this is what it looks like. And some of you may have already seen this in the news that came out. The FBI, in its infinite wisdom, only reports their hate crime data delayed by about 18 months. They're a little slow. They're a little slow. So we're getting, all we have now is 2017 data. And this is what it looks like in Akron. Thankfully, Akron reports. Very happy about that. It's good. 10? Is there 8? Is there 25? Here's where it gets even more confusing. You can look that up, and you'll find what I did. And then you'll say, 4 incidents against the disabled? Really? 10 that are raised? Where was that? FBI's not telling you that. Now what you can do is call the, this is where it gets special. You call the Akron Police Department and say, hi, you got 10, can I see the reports for the 10? What's gonna happen is, they'll say, sure. And they'll give you, let's say you file a freedom of information, right? And they give you 15 reports. I thought there was 10. And there's one here that's anti-LGBT. Now I'm confused. So chances are what you asked for is not what this is gonna give you. A whole other problem. What is it? Did it happen in a school? Was that a conviction? There's no way to know. What I think is that is the number for 2017 in Akron of someone called the Akron Police Department and said, I am a victim, I'll make it easy, I'm a victim of a hate crime because I'm African American, and that's what the person said is he was hitting me, so there's no real question here. And that's one, and that goes under race. That's a police report. Now, as the case works its way through the system, that could then be, oh, well, you also called the person something anti-LGBT or anti-immigrant because he was from Jamaica. It could change, but nobody changed the 10. So, or, oh, the victim went, never mind, I made that up. But that's still a 10. This is, let's see, I could use a much more colorful word, but let's just say this is unreliable, maybe not credible, and really unhelpful, right? These numbers are just not at all helpful. The federal government, in its infinite wisdom, so we have the FBI collecting data. We also have the National Crime Victim Survey collecting data. Those people, also part of the Department of Justice, have said, oh, there's about 250,000 hate crimes every year. I thought there was 7,000, or 250, or something, or frustrating, right? Completely frustrating. How are you gonna know what's true? Heather Heyer, come on. We all know who she is, Charlottesville, right? She is not listed as a victim of a hate crime under the Commonwealth of Virginia's submission to the Uniform Criminal Court. Although her perpetrator pled guilty to federal hate crimes charges.
I thought he was convicted of hate crimes.
Oh yeah, yep. Apparently it just doesn't count under
Virginia.
the Commonwealth of Virginia. Yep, exactly. So if that government data is so bad, shocking, I know, but if all that data is so bad, where do you find other data? ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center. There are so many organizations where you will find other data. The acronym there is Human Rights Campaign, National Center for Transgender Equality. The ADL is collecting data, New York Times is collecting data, ProPublica is collecting data. A lot of other organizations are collecting data. Now, again, what's the problem there? So someone here reports an anti-Jewish incident to the Akron JCC. Akron JCC reports it to the ADL, that's one. But that one didn't make it to the Akron Police Department. Or it did. And let's say it also made it to the Ohio State Police. And then also made it to Akron U. So now we've got 4 or 1? double dipping, quadrupling. That's the problem. The data out there is so bad and unreliable. ADL found this frightening. Schools. Where's all this horribleness happening? Schools. I took them out, but I have pictures in there of assemblies at schools, sporting events at schools, and K through 12, right? Kids holding up signs, build the wall, blood and soil. Kids. Kids. Why does any of this matter? It matters to me because I do it for a living. It matters to some of you who obviously knew the data before I walked in here. Why does it matter? 7,000, 6,000, 250,000. And so, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to do here? When I was in the FBI, I live for data. Live for data. As the FBI director would tell us all the time, not the current one, the one who got fired, as he would tell us all the time, data drives investigations. Intelligence drives investigations. We want information, and that's going to spark investigations. We want information and data. So we want good data. If Ron called me and I was still in the FBI and he said, hey, our JCC was seeing some instances on JCC property against some of our Jewish kids. We're seeing some swastikas spray painted on our building. We're seeing a problem here. If I'm in the FBI, I want to know that. I've got a problem in a certain spot. I want to drive resources to that. I want to stop the threat. Makes perfect sense, right? You don't need to be an FBI agent to figure that out. But what else is it going to tell you? If that was happening here and Ron called the Akron Police Department and they went, what you got, graffiti? Name calling? Is that why you're calling me? Graffiti? Oh, it's not just graffiti? That's the difference. That is the difference that people have to understand. It's not just graffiti. It's not just name calling. It's not kids being kids, locker. It's not any of that. I love talking about the impact that hate has, not just on a certain victim or a certain city, but across the state, across the country. You have a whole lot of free time, and you love Twitter. You can go back and look and see, when was the first tweet about the Pulse nightclub shooting? What time? What time was the first tweet about the Tree of Life Synagogue? What time was the first tweet about Christchurch Mosque? What time was that? And then you look at going forward throughout that day. And then you look at, when was the first vigil? When did you see people out there with candles? When? It's hours, it's minutes. And not just in that city, but all across. And what did you see? I have no doubt that if I would ask Ron what happened here after Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, was he didn't just have members of the Jewish community in Akron, Ohio coming here. Pretty sure you had other people coming here. Catholics, LGBT, Muslims, banded together because they see what hate can do, and they wanted to show you camaraderie and love and collaboration and friendship. That's what they wanted to show you. What we also see after hate crimes is not just the vigils and the candles and the 3 words that I cannot stand, thoughts and prayers. But what we see is not just the coming together, but the negative impact that it could have. I'm sure some of you that were listening to the news today, watching the news today, and you saw the reports of folks, make sure I get this right, in Germany that were told not to wear their yarmulkes. So there was news reports of people in Germany telling Jews, might not want to wear your yarmulkes. We kind of stand out in Germany. I mean, is that what we've become? You can't wear your yarmulke? I can't wear my, which it is so pretty, my rainbow watch band? I mean, is that really what we've become? Can't be who you are? So we see the negative implications, not just the fear. There have been studies that have been done about individuals who were not direct victims of a hate crime, but who felt victimized because of hearing about a hate crime. After the Pulse nightclub shooting, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of members of the LGBT community were scared to death. So what happens if you're scared? Anxiety, depression, you don't go to school, you don't go to work, you don't go shopping. Think of that multiplied by the thousands. Think about that. How economies are going to suffer, schools are going to suffer, communities are going to suffer because people are afraid they're going to be next. It's not something people talk about, but we have to realize the shock waves, the ripple effects from what hate does and how paralyzing and destructive it is. So my wife and I have a son, he's 8 years old. He's gifted. Perfect, really, but that's a whole other, anyway. But the reason he's perfect, let's just be honest, is because 3.5 to 4 years of his life, from 6 months the next 3.5 years on, he was in the JCC in Marblehead, Massachusetts. That's why he's perfect. That's why he's perfect. That's why we still celebrate Hanukkah. I'm quite certain he still thinks he's Jewish. Again, off the topic. Okay. When we first started taking him to the JCC, God, it was lovely, just like it is here. It was lovely. But my wife, who's also an FBI agent, we both started, where's the cameras? Is that door locked? You locked the classroom? And we met a lot of resistance. Because what's the point of a JCC? It's a community place, right? Everybody's welcome. You want to feel welcome here and supported and loved for who you are. And that's what we kept hearing. And I kept thinking, but that door's not locked. That door's not locked. And it took some cajoling for them to make some adjustments with their security. And it was distasteful and awful, and I was mad. I was so mad of even having this conversation. It is. It's resentful. It's angersome. So it's a little. Okay. So we talked about this earlier. So the state of Ohio does not have protections for the LGBT community. How you bring this home a little bit is if I use my mother as an example. I'm sure she doesn't know what this is coming. She's thinking, oh dear God. Now what did you gonna say? So my mother had 2 kids, me and my sister. My sister identifies as straight. I mean, I still love her, but that's fine. So she identifies as straight. I identify as gay. She and I both lived here. I could be fired for being gay, but not my sister. I could be denied a rental unit in an apartment because I'm gay, but not my sister. Is that fair? Quite certain my mother would be very upset about that. Just saying. We talked about this too. It's not just the LGBT community, it's any minority community that feels under attack, that feels victimized, that feel like they're going to be next. It's a very real fear. So I love this quote that is not from Papa Gandhi. It's actually from a teacher in New York City about 1974. She was the first one to use it. I love this. Be the change you wish to see, be the change you want to see. Why? I want to end with just this little short discussion about something. How do we end? How do we end? I'm quite certain that the experiment that is the United States of America will somehow end, because all great empires do. I'm pretty sure that we are not controlled by the Romans, Ottomans, Mayans, Incas, Britain, right? They all failed. How do we fail? If we don't think we're going to fail, what does that look like? Because you think about it, very bloody history, right? Slaughtered the Native Americans, slaughtered the African Americans, Mexicans, gays, Irish. We slaughtered each other. Great Civil War. If you look at some of these gravestones, cartoons, but you think back for what happened there. In a lot of those countries, historical incidences, people turned on each other. Bosnia, the Balkans, the United States. We turn on our neighbor. And if you look at the similarities of how that happened in Bosnia or the Balkans or somewhere else, the leader of that country made it okay, encouraged it. Others, there's us and there's the others. Go kill the others. What can you do? I think a lot. I think you can do a whole big bunch. The Ohio Fairness Act, are we all aware of that? Yes, Cynthia, we're very aware of that. That provide protections to the LGBT community in Ohio and everybody else. Pretty much is going to outlaw discrimination. Housing, public accommodations, employment. Wow, equity. Doesn't that sound a good idea, right? Vote. For the love of all that is holy. Please vote. Please, please. I mean, okay, to be nonpartisan, as of right now, there's a Republican, 752 Democrats, I think, as of last, right? And you're gonna have your primary. Do a little digging. Do a little digging. Who appeals to you? Why? Advocate for somebody. Be an educated voter. Get out there and vote. Please. Advocate for somebody else. Something happens, God forbid, to the Jewish community tomorrow, and there's something happening at the JCC, and you're not Jewish. Come here. Come here. Bring your neighbor. Show that you care. Show that you support them. It means so much. It means so much. Advocate for somebody who's not like you. I love communicating with my elected officials. I'm sure my mother is shocked by that. I take great pride in talking to my elected officials. It's not hard, okay? Email, call, go down to their office here. If you're in DC, stop in. It's not hard. If there's something that appeals to you, an issue that you care about, I don't care if it's climate change, if it's the Ohio Fairness Act, if it's fairness and equality, pro-immigrant, you're not going to key on the wall, whatever it is, tell them. I think you probably all know this, but they keep track. They keep track. Okay, we've got 7,052 yeses and we've got 3 nos. They keep track. Trust me, if you ever go and sit in your congressperson's office and you watch the little 12-year-olds answer the phone and you'll see them writing down or typing, that's because they're keeping track. I know because you're sitting here, a lot of you are already advocating. You're already allies for others. I know that, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me. Clearly, you'd be doing something else. Pick something. Pick something. Find something that speaks to you, something in your heart, whatever that is. For me, it was Marianne Vecchio. That picture of Kent State, that spoke to me at the age of 13. That set me on the path. Find something, whatever it is, and advocate for it. Be a part of the change you want to see. Please, 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 please. It makes a huge difference. I know you're taking questions during it. My mother's not allowed to ask a question. Great question. One second, I'll get to you. So has it gone mainstream? I know you've all seen those videos of Charlottesville. You know what amazed me most? Well, a lot of things amazed me, but they didn't cover their faces. They wore the logo where they worked. They were so proud of what they were doing. So proud. That hasn't happened where somebody felt so comfortable expressing hatred on TV. I bet they were all hoping their parents watched them, right? I'm hoping my family's looking at me, look, I'm on TV. I've got a tiki torch, look at me. And we all know you're not born that way. We all know that. And if you do the research and you do just a little bit of digging as to why people hate each other, you will see it's not hard. They're taught to. It's what, it may not be really explicit. It may not be, gee, I really would love it, honey, if you hate African Americans. No. How do you talk around the dinner table? What do you watch on TV? What do you expose your children to? What do you say? Are you advocating and attending vigils with your kids and telling them why you're there? I could have cared less if my son did not want to march in the Women's March. By God, that kid was going to march in the Women's March. It didn't take much to teach him what was going on. Why are we here? This is why we're here. We don't like hate. We like love. We love people who are weird and different. We love weird and different. Right? Who wants to be like everybody else? That's icky. It's what you do in your everyday lives, even just your vernacular, your vocabulary, your expressions, how you describe people, you describe historical events. It's what these kids grew up with. So you factor in a little bit of hatred, a lot of internet, a lot of I'm feeling kind of inadequate, and I'm going to blame someone else, but it sure as hell isn't my fault. I'm going to blame somebody else for all my problems. And let's blame the immigrants. Mexicans. Gays. Let's blame the other. It's their fault. It's not mine. It's easier. It's easier. Has it gone mainstream? It's a lot more public. But think of it this way. You can be really public in your hatred. Several years ago, where were all those people? They were still here. They didn't just poof appear in the US. They were already here. They already had all those ideas in their head. But it became okay. Why? I think we all know why. You look all the way at the top, and what's he saying? What does somebody else give me permission to do? That guy says it's okay. It's okay. Right? It's okay. That I'm going to be like him, and it's going to be okay. So I know, again, a lot of groups are tracking hate crimes, tracking people that commit hate crimes. We think are going to commit hate crimes. Yes, all of it. But what I tell people is you can look online. You can see Southern Poverty Law Center, the ADL, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. A lot of groups are saying, here's the map of the US, here's where all the hatred is, here's where all the hate groups are. Okay, that's what you know about. How many people are, not to completely make you like, oh my God, how many people are the FBI tracking you don't know about? A lot. So people ask me, well, how many hate groups are in Akron, Ohio? I don't know. I'm sure the FBI knows some. Do they know all? Probably not. Because there probably is that very weird, creepy, violent guy living in his parents' basement. We all know the weird, creepy guy living in his parents', not to be gendered, that's bad. But they usually don't. Okay. But there always is a weird guy living in his parents' basement. Hate going mainstream is not okay. It's not. You're gonna talk to your kids, you're gonna talk to your grandkids, you're gonna talk to your neighbors about, I don't want this. I'm not a fan. I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna choose to go do this over here. But you can all make a difference in your lives and in the lives of others. That's the power that you have. Did I mention you should vote? A little bit? Okay. He's gonna kill me, but I will talk to you right after I put down the microphone. Thank you for your interest and your questions. Thank you so much.